Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. And, I was looking at the calendar this morning and it really hit me that we're basically living in the future that we were promised like 10 years ago.
Are we, though? I mean, sometimes it feels less like the promised future and more like a science fiction novel that's being written in real time.
I know what you mean, but just look at the sidebar material we have for today's deep dive. You've got Gemini 3 doing this kind of deep reasoning that, frankly, scares me a little.
Right.
And then you have Claude Sonnet 4.6 writing code that's cleaner than my college roommate ever did, and he was a genius. The Just the velocity of the tech world right now is blistering.
It's unbelievable.
But, and this is a big but, and it's really the core of the research we have today, it feels like. For anyone trying to build something new, it's actually getting harder, not easier.
It's the classic paradox of abundance, isn't it? We have infinite tools, but we have completely finite attention.
That's it, exactly. The barrier to entry is basically zero. I mean, you or I could probably spin up a startup in an afternoon with some of these new AI agents.
Oh, for sure.
But the barrier to attention, it feels like it's at an all-time high. It feels like the noise floor has risen so much that you have to scream just to be heard as a whisper.
And that is precisely why we are digging into this specific manifesto today.
Right.
It's from the Netizen blog by Paramendra, and honestly, when I first read through this stack of writing, it felt less like a marketing guide and more like a physics textbook.
Marketing Escape Velocity. That's the title. It even sounds like physics.
Exactly. The core question it's asking isn't just, how do I get users? It's a much deeper question. Why do so many companies that have a great product, companies that achieve what we call ignition, still fail to get anywhere? Why do they just stall out on the launch pad?
Right. And we are not just talking about buying a few ads here. We aren't talking about growth hacking in that, cheap, gimmicky sense. We are talking about physics. We're talking about trajectory.
Low momentum.
And today, we're going to unpack how a startup can actually defy the gravitational pull of obscurity. Because that pull in 2026 feels stronger than it has ever been.
It is. Gravity is the default state of the universe, and it's the default state of business. Most things fail. Most things stay on the ground. This manifesto is about the specific mechanics of defying that default.
So let's dive in. The source material, it draws this really sharp distinction right at the very beginning. It says, product market fit is ignition. Marketing escape velocity is liftoff. Okay, let's really unpack that metaphor, because I think in the startup world, we are trained to worship at the altar of product market fit. It's the holy grail.
We are. And for good reason. I mean, let's be clear. Without product market fit, you have nothing. You don't have a business. You have a hobby.
You have a science project.
You have a science project, exactly. But the mistake, and the source is so clear on this, is thinking that product market fit is the destination. It's not. It's the starting line.
The analogy he uses is just fantastic. It says, that is like building a beautiful high-performance car and forgetting to put gas in it.
I mean, think about the psychological trap here for a founder. You spend 2, maybe 3 years coding in a dark room. You launch on Product Hunt or whatever the 2026 equivalent is. You get 1,000 upvotes. You get your first 100, maybe your first 500 users.
You feel like you've won. The engine is purring. The dashboard lights up. You're popping the champagne.
Oh, yeah. You're ordering the branded hoodies.
Yeah.
You're updating your LinkedIn title to visionary.
Right. You've achieved ignition. The machine works. But the source makes this really brutal distinction. Ignition is static. It's potential energy.
You can rev an engine in a garage until the whole thing blows up, and you still haven't moved a single inch. You've just made a lot of noise and smoke.
Because you haven't engaged the transmission? Or you haven't actually put any fuel in the tank to begin with?
It's both. Or, to use the metaphor we're going to be living in for the next hour or so, the rocket ship. You've lit the fuse, the engine is firing, there are sparks, but you haven't generated nearly enough thrust to overcome gravity.
And in business, gravity isn't just hard work. The source says gravity is specific things. It's customer inertia. People hate changing their habits, even for something better.
There's noise. All your competitors are shouting louder than you. And it's just pure, simple obscurity. No one knows you exist. That's a massive gravitational force.
So product market fit just means you built a rocket that could fly. Marketing escape velocity is the actual violent fuel-burning act of flying it.
And the tragedy, and this is the thing that keeps VCs and founders up at night, is seeing a perfect, beautiful rocket just sit on the launch pad until it rusts, all because the founder was too afraid, or maybe too proud, to burn the fuel required to lift it.
You're just idling?
You are idling. And in the tech world, in this high-velocity market we're in, idling is a slow death. Because while you are idling, admiring your beautiful engine,
Yeah.
someone else is flying right past you.
And maybe with a worse engine.
Often with a worse engine, but they have better fuel, or they're just more willing to burn it.
That's a scary thought. A worse engine, but better fuel. So the shift here is about changing the fundamental question you ask yourself as a founder. In phase one, the question is, does the product work?
That's an engineering question. It's a logic puzzle. It's almost binary, yes or no.
But the moment you can answer yes to that, the source argues you have to immediately pivot to a completely new and much scarier question. Are we accelerating fast enough?
And that is a terrifying shift for a lot of founders, especially technical founders. Because does the product work? It's a puzzle you can solve in a dark room with headphones on and a good compiler.
It's controllable.
It's controllable. Are we accelerating fast enough is a physics question. It's about momentum and force and the market. And the force required to move a static object, a brand new company with no reputation, is immense.
Okay, this brings us to the core definition then. What is marketing escape velocity? It's not just growing. It's not, we got 10% more users this month. How does the source define this specific moment, this threshold?
It defines it as the moment when customer acquisition stops being a heroic, artisanal struggle and starts being a systematic machine.
A machine.
A machine. Revenue grows predictably, month over month, like clockwork. But more importantly, and this is the absolute key to the whole concept, brand awareness starts to reduce the friction of future sales.
Reducing friction. I love that term. But let's make that real. What does that actually look like in practice for a startup?
Okay, think about it. When you're a complete nobody, every single sale is a fight. It's a cold call. You have to explain who you are, why you even exist, why they should trust you with their data or their money.
Why you're not going to go bankrupt in 6 months and leave them stranded.
Exactly. That's gravity. Gravity is pulling you down in every single one of those conversations. Every sale is an uphill battle against skepticism.
Okay, I get that.
Marketing escape velocity is the moment the hill inverts. The market starts pulling you up. You walk into a meeting, and they say, oh yeah, I've seen your stuff online. Or, my friend at this other company uses you.
The friction is gone, or at least it's lower.
It's dramatically lower. You stop fighting for every inch, and you start being pulled forward by your own momentum. That is the dream state.
That is the dream. But to get there, the source argues you have to completely rewire your brain about what marketing actually is. And this brings us right into part 2, the mindset shift.
This is where most technical founders, in my experience, really fail.
It hits home for me because I see this constantly. The flawed view, as the source calls it, the idea that marketing is just an expense line on a spreadsheet.
Or worse, decoration.
Yes, make it look pretty. Go sprinkle some magic marketing dust on it.
We built the serious thing, now you go put some glitter on it, make a nice website.
That is the support function fallacy. It's this deep-seated idea that the product is the hero of the story, and marketing is just the sidekick carrying the luggage. The source absolutely destroys this idea.
It says marketing is not support, marketing is infrastructure.
Okay, I get the infrastructure analogy conceptually, like marketing is the electricity for the building, fine. But let's be real for a second. Electricity is the utility. You flip a switch, it works every time. Marketing, it often feels like gambling.
It feels like lighting money on fire in a barrel, I know.
Exactly. If I pay for an AWS server, I know I get storage and compute. If I pay an agency $10,000 for ads, I might get literally nothing back. So isn't it dangerous to call it infrastructure?
That's the fear talking. And the source argues that this fear comes from a lack of something it calls marketing market fit, which we will definitely get to. But the core argument here is that without marketing, your product is fundamentally useless.
It's just dead metal.
It's dead metal. The analogy expands. If the product is the engine, marketing is the combustion system.
The combustion system.
Yeah.
I like that.
You can have the best engineered pistons in the world. That's your beautiful product features. But without the controlled explosion of fuel and air, that's marketing. The pistons don't move. You can't separate the two. A car without an engine doesn't move. But an engine without fuel is just a heavy sculpture. They are codependent infrastructure.
That is a very powerful reframing. It completely changes the conversation. It stops being, should we spend this money on marketing? And becomes, do we actually want the engine to run?
Precisely. And this leads to a very, very controversial point, I'm sure, for some CFOs. The source argues that marketing is an immediate revenue engine. not a speculative long-term investment.
Wait, immediate. That cuts against the grain. We always hear brand building takes years. You have to plant the seeds and wait for the tree to grow.
And that's true for, say, Coca-Cola's level of brand reputation. But the source makes a sharp distinction between brand reputation and marketing velocity.
Right.
It sets a very aggressive timeline.
What's the timeline?
It says, month one, okay, your results might be slow. You're finding what it calls marketing market fit.
Marketing market fit.
Yeah, it's a clever term. Just like your product needs to fit the market's needs, your message needs to fit the market's psychology. You're calibrating. You're testing headlines. You're trying different channels. You're learning.
So you're allowed a learning phase.
For 1 month. The source says by month 2, you should see measurable positive returns.
Month 2.
Yeah.
That's an aggressive benchmark.
It is. But in 2026, with the AI-powered targeting tools we have, with the rapid feedback loops from digital ads, it's realistic. If you're 3 months in and you are still just building awareness with no attributable revenue to show for it, the source argues you're not building a brand, you're just burning money.
And this leads right into the irrational not to scale argument. If marketing is generating these predictable returns, shrinking the budget is it is illogical.
It's like finding a machine that turns $1 into $3 and then deciding to only put dimes into it because you want to be prudent.
You don't tap the brakes during a rocket launch, you floor it.
You have to. Which brings us to part 3, the fuel burn principle. This is where the physics gets very real and very scary for some people.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers, because burn bright sounds terrifyingly close to run out of cash in 6 months. The source talks about this 10 to 20% of revenue rule for marketing spend.
Right, and that's the standard, that's the safe zone, that's the cruising altitude number. If you're a massive established company like Salesforce or Microsoft, you allocate 10–20% of your revenue to marketing just to maintain your market position.
Okay, so that's for incumbents.
But the source argues that for early-stage companies that are aiming for liftoff, that percentage often needs to be significantly higher. You might be spending 80%, 100%, or in some cases, even 120% of your current revenue on marketing.
Okay, spending more than you make, that's deficit spending. That's where founders get nervous sweats.
It is. But it's temporary and it's strategic. And this is where the acronyms become absolutely critical. We have to talk about CAC and LTV.
Right. Break those down for anyone listening who hasn't stared at a spreadsheet in a while.
Sure. CAC is your customer acquisition cost. You add up all your marketing and sales spend in a month, and you divide it by the number of new customers you got. It's a price tag for one customer.
Simple enough.
And then LTV is lifetime value. Of all the customers you acquire, how much revenue on average will one of them generate for you before they cancel or churn?
So how much they're worth to you over time.
Exactly. And the fuel burn principle only works if your LTV is significantly higher than your CAC. The source mentions a 3-to-1 ratio as being pretty conservative for an early-stage tech startup.
So if it costs me $100 to acquire a new customer, they had better be on track to pay me at least $300 over their lifetime with me.
At a bare minimum. A 5-to-1 ratio is even better. And here is the kicker, the core of the irrational argument. If you have that 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio, if you can prove you put $1 in the marketing machine and $3 or $5 comes out, and you are still hesitating to spend more because you want to save cash or be prudent,
You're being irrational.
you are actively harming your own business. You are starving a machine that prints money. The source literally asks, why would you shrink the engine? If the math works, you don't tap the brakes. You floor it.
Okay, I have to play the nervous founder here for a second because this is a real-world problem.
Please do.
I put $1 in. I know, based on my model, that $3 will come out eventually. But that $3 comes out over, say, 2 years. I have to pay for the ad today. I run out of cash before the LTV actually pays me back. That's the classic startup valley of death, isn't it?
That is the J-curve, 100%. And you are absolutely right, that is the risk. That is why startups raise venture capital. You don't raise VC money to pay for servers anymore. Not really. You raise capital to fund the fuel burn while you wait for the LTV to kick in.
So the VC money is the bridge loan across that valley.
It's the bridge over the cash flow trough. But if you have the math, if you can walk into a VC's office and show them a spreadsheet that proves your 3x or 5x return on ad spend, they will give you the money. The problem is when founders don't know the math or they're too scared to spend enough to even test the math. So they spend a tiny amount, get mediocre, inconclusive results, and then they stall out.
They just idle.
They idle. And gravity always wins against an idling engine.
This brings us to the physics of launch section. The first 10 seconds analogy. This was, I think, my favorite part of the reading.
It's so visceral. It's pure physics.
Hmm.
A Saturn V rocket burned the vast majority of its fuel in the first few minutes of flight,
Why is that?
because that is when it's fighting the thickest part of the atmosphere and the absolute strongest pull of Earth's gravity.
Gravity is strongest at liftoff, at sea level.
Correct. Once you're in the vacuum of space,
Yeah.
in orbit, you can cruise. You can make tiny adjustments with little thrusters. But to get off the ground, you need maximum overwhelming thrust.
And the source applies this to startups perfectly. Early stage companies need to burn bright and burn deliberately.
It's not about being reckless. It's about applying the necessary force to overcome the initial inertia.
So this implies that the conservative approach, let's just dip our toe in, spend a little bit here, a little bit there, is actually the most dangerous approach you can take.
It is the most dangerous because it consumes your precious resources without achieving the objective.
Yeah.
It's like trying to jump over a 10-foot chasm, but only taking a 5-foot running start because you want to save energy.
You don't get halfway across the chasm.
No, you fall right to the bottom. And you've wasted the energy anyway.
Enough to hurt, but not enough to escape. That is the absolute worst of both worlds.
It is. You burned the fuel, you spent the cash, but you are still on the ground. The source is making a very strong argument. If you're going to burn enough to actually get out, commit to the launch.
But, and this is a really big but, you can't just burn fuel by shouting at people. You can't just scream your company name into the void. The source makes a really interesting and critical point here about the direction of the information flow.
Yes. Part 4, marketing as a listening system, or as he calls it, an intelligence gathering operation.
We usually think of marketing as broadcasting, right? It's a megaphone. Here's my amazing product. Buy it now.
Right. It's one-way communication.
Yeah.
A monologue. But the source completely challenges this. It says effective marketing isn't a megaphone, it's a radar system. It's a two-way loop.
How so? Explain the radar system.
Think about what happens when you run a digital ad campaign. You aren't just putting images in front of people's eyes. You are sending out a signal, and you are getting thousands of little signals back.
I want to dig into the how of this because listening sounds really soft. It sounds like running a focus group with some coffee and donuts.
Oh, absolutely not. The source is very clear. Focus groups are where people go to lie to you to be polite. They tell you what they think you want to hear. Oh yes, I would definitely pay for that.
But they never do.
They never do. Listening, in this context, is forensic. It's analyzing the crime scene of your failed conversions.
The crime scene. I love that image. It's so vivid.
Seriously, let's get granular. Let's say you're selling a new project management tool. You run an ad campaign with the headline, "Get better organized." Almost nobody clicks.
Okay.
Then you run another ad, same audience, same product, but the headline is, "Finally, your boss will stop yelling at you." And suddenly your click-through rate skyrockets.
Okay, so the market just told you something. It told you their immediate pain isn't disorganization, it's professional anxiety or fear.
Exactly. That is a radar ping. A huge one. You just learned the deep emotional reality of your customer. And you didn't learn it by asking them. You learned it by measuring their actual subconscious behavior.
And that insight shouldn't just stay in the marketing department spreadsheet.
It should be on a flashing red sign in the product development team's office, I should say. Build features that reduce user anxiety, not just features that organize files.
So every ad you run is actually a survey.
It's a survey that people complete with their behavior, which is infinitely more honest than a survey they fill out with a pen. People lie on surveys all the time. They don't lie with their credit cards or their clicks.
That is so true.
The source lists all these signals you should be gathering. What messaging actually converts? What objections do you see repeating? What features get people excited? What price points trigger resistance? If you are only looking at the total sales column at the end of the month, you're missing 90% of the value of your marketing spend. You're missing the intelligence.
And this has to feed back into the product. The source uses Amazon as a prime example.
Right. Early Amazon didn't just push products they thought were good. They absorbed behavior at a massive scale. They saw what people searched for, what products they bundled together in their carts, what they looked at but didn't buy. And they used that data to constantly re-engineer the entire store.
In 2026, this is even more critical because the market moves so much faster. If your marketing team and your product team are in different silos or worse, different buildings, you're dead.
You're flying a plane where the pilot can't talk to the navigator. It's a guaranteed crash. Product and marketing stop being separate departments, and they have to become a single high-speed feedback loop.
So marketing tells product what the market wants next. Product builds it, and then product gives marketing new features to test as new signals to send out.
It's a virtuous cycle. It's an engine that learns. And this
Mhm.
integration, the source argues, is an absolute prerequisite for achieving escape velocity.
This leads us perfectly to what comes next. So, you've achieved liftoff. The engine is burning hot. You're listening. You are growing. But you can't just keep selling the exact same thing to the exact same people forever, can you?
No, you can't. This is where we have to talk about part 5, the wedge and the expansion.
The wedge. It sounds very strategic, very deliberate.
It is. Every great startup begins as a wedge. You start small and sharp, a single feature, a super narrow niche, a very specific customer profile. You have to be a specialist to break through the noise. You drive that wedge into a small crack in the market to create an opening.
Give me an example of a wedge.
The source mentions a SaaS product that starts out just by doing one simple thing, say employee expense reporting. That's it. That's the wedge. Or a fintech app that only does simple, free money transfers between friends.
Okay. A simple, sharp, easy to understand entry point.
But the trap, and this is where so many companies stall out and hit a plateau, is staying in the wedge for too long.
You get comfortable in the wedge, it's your niche, you own it, you're the king of expense reporting software for dentists or whatever.
You are, and that's great for a lifestyle business. But you cannot achieve escape velocity. You cannot become a unicorn by staying in the wedge forever. You have to discover adjacency.
Okay, this part gets a little tricky for me because in startup land, the golden rule we're always taught is both. Do one thing and do it better than anyone else. Don't get distracted.
Right.
But now this source is saying by year 3, you better be evolving and doing something else too. Isn't that just a recipe for disaster, for losing focus?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
If you get the definition of adjacent wrong, this is critical.
Explain that distinction. What is true adjacency versus distraction?
Adjacency means it touches your core. It shares a border with what you already do. So if I sell you an expense reporting tool and then I try to sell you dog food, that is not adjacent. That's random. That is dilution. That is chasing shiny objects.
Right. That's a classic startup failure mode.
But if I sell you an expense reporting tool and I see through my listening system that you are constantly exporting that data to your accounting software, then selling you automated bookkeeping integration is perfectly adjacent.
Ah, it solves the next problem the customer has, a problem that happens immediately after they use your core product.
Exactly. The source says you detect adjacent problems. Often, your own solution creates a new set of high-quality problems for your user.
High-quality problems. I like that phrasing.
Yes. For example, I have so many new customers thanks to your marketing automation tool that now I can't possibly support them all with my small team.
That's a great problem to
A
have.
fantastic problem. And the adjacent solution is, well, here's our new automated customer support bot that integrates seamlessly with our marketing tool.
I see. So look at a company like Uber. They started with the wedge. Get a black car now.
A perfect wedge. Super simple.
Once you're in the car, where are you going? Very often you're going to or from a restaurant. Or you're at home and you're hungry.
So Uber Eats wasn't a distraction. It was the most logical adjacent need.
It utilized the same driver network, the core infrastructure, to solve a similar time and convenience problem for the same user base. That's true adjacency.
That's it. If Uber had launched a music streaming service back then, that would have been a distraction. Food delivery was the up pivot.
The source has this quote here that I highlighted. It says, "Your starting point is your wedge, not your ceiling, not your prison."
That is such a profound line. Not your prison. I think so many founders build their own prisons. They define themselves too narrowly. They say, we are an expense reporting company. No, you are a problem-solving company for small businesses that started with expense reports.
And moving into these adjacent territories, it increases the lifetime value, the LTV of each customer, which gives you more money to pour back into the fuel burn for your marketing.
And the cycle accelerates.
Yes.
The rocket goes faster.
So we are accelerating, we're expanding into adjacent markets. And this leads to something the source calls the up pivot. Now, I know the word pivot. A pivot usually means, oh crap, nothing is working, we're about to die, let's try to sell t-shirts instead.
The survival pivot, the desperation pivot, it's reactive. It's running away from failure.
But an up pivot is completely different.
It's the polar opposite.
Yeah,
An up pivot is proactive. It happens because you are winning so decisively, not because you are losing.
Yeah.
It is when you scale your vision by 10x because the momentum you've built actually demands it.
Scaling ambition 10x.
Think about the psychology of it. When you are scraping by just trying to make payroll, your ambition is survival. Your whole mindset is let's protect the runway. It's defensive.
You're playing not to lose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when marketing escape velocity kicks in and revenue becomes predictable and is accelerating, your entire psychology as a founder changes. You go from defense to offense.
You stop asking, how do we survive? And you start asking, just how big can this thing possibly get?
That's the shift. You start asking, what if we doubled the budget again? What if we launched in Europe next quarter? What if we stopped being a simple tool and became the entire platform for this industry?
From niche tool to platform, from regional player to global contender.
From a product company to an entire ecosystem builder, that is the up pivot. But, and this is absolutely critical ambition without momentum, is just fantasy. It's delusion.
You can't just wake up one day and decide to up pivot if you haven't done the hard work on the fuel burn and the listening system first.
Marketing escape velocity is what turns ambition from a daydream into a probability.
Beautifully put. And it gives you what the source calls the financial oxygen to even attempt these massive order of magnitude jumps. You can't build an enterprise solution on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
You need the gravity of a well-known brand.
And that's brand gravity. Another cool concept. It's not just about attracting customers anymore.
No.
It starts attracting everything else you need. It attracts the best talent. The most brilliant engineers want to work on a rocket ship, not on a car that's stuck in the garage.
It attracts investors. It attracts partnerships. Success begets success.
Momentum creates its own gravity.
So how do you tell the difference between a delusional founder who just thinks they are God's gift to technology and a founder who is executing a genuine up pivot?
Evidence, data. The up pivot is always evidence-based. It's built on a foundation of high ROI from marketing. It's built on proven product market fit. It's built on visible, hungry adjacent markets you've identified through your listening system. It is leverage, not hope. Delusion is hope without any leverage.
Leverage, not hope. I love that. So, okay, you have the leverage, you're flying high, you're approaching the stratosphere, and then the suits show up at your door.
The acquisition offers start rolling in.
This is part 7, the unicorn endgame, and what the source calls the hard choice.
This is the ultimate test of a founder's character and vision.
Resisting the easy exit.
It is so incredibly tempting. You've been eating ramen for 3 years. You've been stressed out of your mind. And suddenly, big tech company X comes along and offers you $50 million or $100 million.
That is life-changing money. That is, I never have to work again money for you and your family.
It is. And the source is very clear.
Yeah.
There is no shame in taking it.
Yeah.
It explicitly says there's nothing wrong with liquidity, but if your stated mission is unicorn status and beyond, if you truly want to build a trajectory that changes an industry, you cannot optimize for early comfort. Unicorns are not built by taking the easy exit. They are built by what the source calls intelligent aggression.
Intelligent aggression. That sounds intense. What does that look like in practice?
It means doubling down when everyone else would cash out. It means reinvestment. This is the hardest part for many. Escape velocity requires the long-term, disciplined reinvestment of your profits back into the machine, into marketing and product, rather than taking that profit out to buy a yacht or optimize for margins.
You just keep feeding the beast.
You are feeding the trajectory. Because once you break through that final layer of gravity, the gravity of obscurity, of intense competition, of resource scarcity, something amazing happens. The source calls it the inevitability factor.
Inevitability.
Your valuation, your place in the market, it starts to reflect a sense of inevitability. Investors stop looking at your P&L as just a snapshot of today, and they start funding you as a growth machine. They can see the orbit you're headed for. They know you're going to get there. It just becomes a matter of time.
And that is the final destination. Unicorn status isn't some kind of magic. It's not luck.
No. The source says, and I'll quote it directly, unicorn status is the mathematical consequence of compounded acceleration.
A mathematical consequence. That makes it sound so attainable, so deterministic.
If you follow the physics, if you have the right fuel, if you listen, if you expand your vision, and if you refuse to settle for an early exit.
So let's bring this all back down to Earth for a moment, or maybe let's look back at Earth from orbit. We've gone through the physics of growth, the mindset shift, the fuel burn, the art of listening, adjacency, the up pivot, and the final unicorn endgame.
We have. It's the full flight plan.
If you had to summarize the key takeaways for our listener who might be sitting in a WeWork right now or driving to a pitch meeting, feeling that gravitational pull, what are they?
Okay, I'd say there are 4, maybe 5 key things. First, marketing is fuel, not paint. Do not ever treat it as a cosmetic afterthought.
Got it.
Second, burn hard early. The fuel burn principle is real. You have to fight gravity hardest at the very start. Don't be timid.
Number 3.
Listen as much as you broadcast. Your marketing is your radar system, your intelligence agency. Use it that way.
Okay, and 4?
Use your momentum to trigger an up pivot. Don't let your wedge become your prison. Always be looking for the adjacent problem to solve.
And a final one.
Believe in the math. If the ROI is there, if the machine is working, your job is to scale it. Don't be afraid of the speed.
Don't be afraid of the speed. I think that is the motto for business in 2026.
It really has to be.
I want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought here. The source mentions that once you break gravity, you are no longer just a startup, you are a trajectory.
Yes, I love that line.
But we started this whole deep dive talking about the age of abundance. It's February 2026. AI is creating code, art, text, everything in infinite quantities. If marketing creates abundance for the company, revenue, growth, users, and the company in turn creates abundance for the world, does the very definition of value itself start to change when everyone can reach escape velocity?
That is the big philosophical question, isn't it?
If we all have these growth machines, what are we all growing towards?
The source implies that the up pivot isn't just about making more money or capturing more market share. It's about earning the right to solve bigger and bigger problems. Maybe the up pivot is actually a responsibility.
A responsibility.
Yeah. Once survival is no longer the question on the table, you kind of lose the excuse to only solve small, trivial problems. You have the resources, the talent, the brand gravity. You have to start tackling human scale problems.
That gives me chills. Once survival is no longer the question, you lose the excuse to solve small problems.
That's the ultimate challenge of abundance, I think.
Well, on that note, we are going to leave you to check your own trajectory. Are you idling on the launch pad? Are you at ignition? Or are you burning the fuel you need to break the atmosphere?
Check your gauges.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you in the next one.
You up there?